Ben here from Solar and Sat, and this week in the workshop we've got a pair of Willow Caravans. Now Searles RV Centre has actually sent these through to us brand new, so they haven't been registered, customers never even seen them. The idea is we're going to set them up from factory as an off-grid touring sort of setup, so that way when they're going off-grid they can use their air cons, they can use their microwaves, toasters, coffee machines, all that equipment. Now there's only really one key difference between these two caravans, and that's that this one here that Vince is installing on, he's actually deleting the BMS and we're putting in a whole Victron system from the beginning. So all the water tank sensing, all the loads on and off, all the relays, they're all going to be controlled by the Victron setup, because this customer's a little bit of a perfectionist. He didn't really want to have two BMSs in there. Now the other caravan, a little bit cheaper, you can save a bit more money by keeping that factory setup and letting it handle the water tank monitoring, turning on the loads and stuff. And that will be very similar with just a little bit less battery storage, a little bit less solar, and as I said, keeping that projector management system in there. So I might hand you over to Vince and Craig and they can give you a bit of a run through on what they're each doing to each of their vans, and we can go from there.
So here we are guys in another brand new Willow Caravan. This has just been dropped off from the dealership and we're going to be doing a full custom power system in it as per usual. This customer has gone with a few extras just to get it done once, get it done right, and I'll show you exactly what we're going to be doing. So the power system's all going to be going underneath the bed there. The van comes factory with a 100 amp battery and also the projector system. So as you'll see down here, you've got the projector battery management system, and that basically controls everything in the caravan, as a lot of you would already know. So it's got the shunt underneath the bed there, and then the projector system here. So that will run things like your solar on your roof, your power from your car's alternator. It'll run your water tank sensors and everything else in the van, including your lights, your pump, your 12 volt fans, etc. Everything runs off that one system, and it also works as a transformer as well. So when you plug into mains, it converts it to 12 volt instead of using your battery power. Basically, we don't want to be putting a big Victron system in here with the projector. We want it to be all Victron. So we're going to give the customers the best system possible as they've requested. We'll be removing that battery management system and replacing it with a fuse block that everything will run through. So basically, like I said, we'll be fitting a brand new solar regulator, running all new cables, all new solar on the roof. We'll run a new cable from the A-frame through our separate DC chargers. This will have two 30 amp DC chargers, and this will be unplugged, removed. It won't work as a mains charger anymore because that'll obviously be working off the inverter charger that we fit. So completely Victron system, no projector in there whatsoever. Once we remove that, we'll also have to remove the display screen up here as well. And so basically that monitors everything when it comes to your water tank sensors, how much power you're using. You can also turn your pump on and off via this switch too. And you can also turn your loads off as well via that switch, so that'll cut everything out. We want to be able to keep those options. So what we'll be doing is removing that panel, be fitting all our own water tank sensors and our own switches there as well. So because it's a brand new caravan, we can actually fit a water tank sensor in the grey tank as well as the two freshwater tanks underneath. It'll all be off our own Serbo Touch 70 display screen that we mount here. And that just means that everything will be on the one screen. Your water tank sensors, your pump switch, your battery level, how much power you're using. You can turn the inverter on and off all off the one screen instead of having to look here for your battery power and here for your water tank sensors. Just makes for a much more compatible system.
G'day guys, Craig here. Today we're in the second Willow over here. This one's going to have a 3000p system in it. We're trying to put everything on the right side here just to keep everything away from storage. The customer has asked us to put provision for 2 extra batteries on the 2 that he's already got, and he's also asked us to put provision up there on the roof for 2 more panels for the 4 that he already has as well. Unlike the other job, this Willow will be leaving the projector system in. Because we won't be fitting new water tank sensors to this caravan, there's no need to remove that factory projector system. It can still be used to monitor all the factory tank sensors and stuff like that. Just saves us having to also put a new fuse block in and other components, and it'll just save the customer a bit of money. Just to make it a little bit easier, these guys have a fair bit of load here, so we're going to take the solar away from the projector, put that into our regulator because that's a correct size for what we're doing, and that projector will just then stay in place just to make it a little bit easier. So it should make a really good system.
Just a quick reminder guys that we are national distributors of all Victron Energy and Shervy solar products. So whether it's direct to the end user or if you want to buy wholesale for your business, make sure you check out our website. Alright, so we're inside Vince's caravan here that he's been working on. He's had 5 days for this one because the customers come in and said, hey, I want a pretty well perfect power system. If it was your van and you were told to do it perfect, how would you do it? Now, I'll say nothing's ever truly perfect, but I like to think we've come fairly close with this one. So I'll show you a bit of what we've done and why. We've got 3 200 amp hour Victron batteries in parallel, each of them wired separately up to this big bus bar here on 32mm squared cable. And then we've run twin 49mm squared cable up into this multi-plus to allow for the maximum surging that unit can handle. We've run twin 30 amp DC-DC chargers, and Vince has actually put this one to the CNC boys to make up some custom vents in behind them. And then he's put a custom vent here on the front where we'll blow the hot air out. And what that'll do is it'll pull cool air directly through the fins on the back of those DC-DC chargers. Now these fellas here, they do get pretty warm, they run warm, that's fine. But obviously if you can keep them cool, they'll run even better. And that's the idea of what we've done in here. We've deleted the projector management system at the customer's request. Obviously it sort of gets relegated to a bit of a switch and a water tank monitor by the time we're finished anyway, because it's too small for the DC-DC chargers, it's too small for the amount of solar on the roof, 1200 watts, we've got a separate regulator, it's too small for the big inverter charger in here, so obviously it wasn't doing much by the time we were finished. And for maximum reliability, the customer, because him already knowing, hey, if you have this battery management system running through this battery management system and they both have to work perfectly for everything to run, you've obviously got less reliability than if you were just to have one battery management system. But it does take care of a lot of stuff in these Willow Caravans. So we've had to replace a few things, and I'll tell you what we've sort of done. Obviously it's come out, it was a fuse block, so we've replaced it with a normal fuse block, and it was a 12 volt switch. So we've actually wired that fuse block onto a separate 100 amp relay, which is controlled via a switch, and that way he can turn off the non-essential 12 volt loads when he wants to. It's also a pump switch, so we provide the pump switch into the Servo GX, so that way you can control it with the touchscreen. It also did the water tank sensing. He's got 3 water tanks under here. We've replaced those with pressure sensing water tank sensors using a GX Tank 140, which will give him far more accurate water tank sensing. We'll take a look at that when we go up and have a look at the touchscreen in a moment. Paired this all up with the Victron Lynx BMS, which is pretty much the most complete BMS that Victron makes. It has low state charge cutout, has emergency disconnect, has separate allowed to charge, allowed to discharge relays. It pretty much is everything you could want from a BMS. But what we might do is we'll tuck up there now, have a bit of a look at that touchscreen, and we'll go over some of the finer details and some of the other things he's requested that we do. So right up here, I've got this touchscreen here. But before we even touch on this, I suppose, when we deleted the projector, we had to remove the touchscreen it had. So once again, Vince has gone over to the CNC team and said, hey, I just want a little plate cut out that'll hide the hole. And then we also reused it for our physical switches. So one's our system switch if you want to isolate everything, and the other is that 12 volt non-essential load switch. So it'll turn off pretty much everything except the fridge, and that's just because there's so many lights around and whatnot. It's just easy to flick that one switch, turn everything off, and flick it all back on if you want to. Then coming down to this touchscreen, we've pretty much used every feature on here. We've got the main overview here, tells us what the solar's doing, what the battery's doing, what the 12 volt loads are, 240 volt loads are. I'm sure you've seen it in some of our other videos. If we flick over here, we've got the independent water tank monitors. Now the customer requested a sensor in each water tank, despite the fact that the fresh water tanks are joined. And if we run the pump, you will actually notice the tanks will go a little bit out of sequence, and then after a little bit, they'll balance out. He just wanted to know exactly what was going on. So we've done that for him as well. There's the digital pump switch. We can obviously see the water tank sensors from here, turn the inverter on and off. And then what we've got is we've got 3 different temperature sensors in here as well. So we've got a hardwired one for our power system, which will activate those fans I mentioned earlier. Then we've actually got 2 of these wonderful little Ruby sensors here. What this lets us do, they're a Bluetooth sensor. They generally have a couple of years battery life. You can chuck this in your fridge and saves us running the wire all the way up into the fridge, which can be very difficult depending on the fridge. So this lets us just put it in the fridge and the customer can see exactly what the fridge's temperature is. So there's one in there now, and this is a spare one for him that he can use for anything else he wants. If he just wants to measure ambient temperature, measure external temperature, he can do all that sort of stuff. So makes for a very complete installation. There's nothing really left out of it. Hopefully the customer will be very happy with this one when he does pick it up. All right, we're over here in the second Willow Caravan. Now this is the one Craig's been working on. Much the same as the other one. We've just got a little bit less battery capacity, a little bit less solar. Obviously this is a Willow Ironbark. Very spacious in here actually. But what we've done is we've got a couple changes that the customer's requested. So ordinarily we put our battery bank over in this corner here, but the customer said, hey, there's a fair chance I'm actually gonna come back for additional batteries, 1 or even 2. So what we've done is we've moved it over here to the left. And at the moment, we've just put terminal covers to protect these terminals, which has left the customer with a little bit of storage to put things. If he comes back for 2 or even 1 more battery, we'll probably just put an acrylic plate over here to cover this. As you can see, we've left the projector management system in here, and that has saved us a bunch of work and a bunch of time. It saved us putting in an extra fuse block, putting in water tank sensors, it saved a bunch of switching on relays. Whole bunch of stuff there, which has obviously saved the customer some money as well, which he could easily spend on more batteries, more solar, or anything else he wants to spend it on. But we've still got the Servo GX to monitor it all. Still makes for a very reliable system. Still got the 3 kVA multi-plus in here. The customer can still run his aircon for quite a few hours just off his battery bank. But if he decides later on, like, oh man, this aircon stuff's great, I want to run it for longer, he can easily add a couple batteries, and you can actually add over 400 additional watts on the roof. He's already got 800, so he's already got more than most people, but if he wants even more, he can certainly do that as well. I think it makes for one tidy system, that's for sure. Well, there you have it. That's 2 more Willows through our workshop and 2 more Caravans that are completely capable off-grid and can run their aircons. If you're after a similar sort of setup, whether you've got a brand new Caravan or an older Caravan, if you want to use your aircon or if you just want to run your fridge, give us a call at Solar Insight Bundaberg and we'll get you sorted.